So for folks who may come later, but let's just kind of dive in, and then we'll see if folks kind of join us here. Sorry, I lost my laptop went blue screen last night, so I'm using my backup laptop, but hopefully this will work. And hopefully you'll be able to see stuff. Put in presentation mode. I'll go full screen here, which makes my screen really huge. Oops. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. I may not see it. My screen is just really wacko right now. Okay. Okay, so I just want to introduce everybody to this the state of Hawaii's newest incubation program. So this is supported by HTDC, the High Tech Development Corporation, State of Hawaii. The program is called Hawaii Wave, and it's a dual-use incubation program, and I'll get into that, what that is. My name is Ian Kitajima. I'm with the Pacific International Center for High Technology Research, or sometimes called PICHTR. We're a 40-year-old nonprofit, and we've been kind of an accelerator, an incubator of incubators, I would say, because we've run several incubators in the past and have a current one that I'll talk about here. But essentially, we are looking for Hawaii-based companies that are already, maybe in the civilian space. They're doing something already. They have some success, some customer traction, but they're interested in looking at how to pivot into or explore the federal government market as well as the defense sector. Okay. The the genesis of this Hawaii Wave program actually comes out of our work with the Japanese government. So currently, or previously for the last 2 years, PICHTR has been running a defense dual use program for the Japanese government. The generic name for it is JSTAR X. And we run one of 20 incubator programs that the Japanese government sends their best technologies companies out into the world. There's one in Israel, Singapore, I don't know, Silicon Valley, LA, different parts of the world. We run one of 20, which is a dual use incubation program. And we actually run it out of Hawaii. So we've been doing this program the last 2 years. So a lot of what we were doing in that program made us think, well, we wish we could have Hawaii companies be a part of the program. But again, because this is funded by the Japanese government, we couldn't bring Hawaii companies into the program. So what we did is we wrote, basically a proposal to HTDC to run a version of this, but for Hawaii companies. So really leveraging all of the resources, mentors, opportunities that came out of the JSTAR X program, we want to bring that to Hawaii companies. So it's a very unique opportunity to do that, I believe. And just to let you know, 20 years ago, PICHTR ran probably the first dual-use incubation program in the United States 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, we ran a version of this where, back then we had like $40 million worth to actually put into actual companies. Like we actually had monies to actually invest in companies to actually help them come into the dual-use sector. Now, in this program that we do not have money to invest into you. We do not take equity or whatever, but we provide you with the same expertise that we are bringing to the federal government program. Actually, the JSTAR X program. Hold on a second here. We have somebody joining us. Okay, here we go. Hey, Matt. We just kicked off. Can you guys still see my screen, or do I need to go full screen?
I can see your screen.
You can still see the screen? Okay, then that way I can easily flip back to the Google Meet to let people in the room. Okay, so anyway, so again, we're kind of leveraging off the JSTAR X program as well as the dual use incubation program. PICHTR started 20 years ago. I added these slides just because it's like, why the U.S. federal government? It's because it's just gigantic. It's the it is really the biggest, largest single customer in the world. U.S. Department of Defense alone, their budget, the U.S. Defense budget is insane. Even when I was, and Mark and I worked together at Oceanet, even back then, the budgets were crazy big. They're over $850 billion just for defense. I mean, it is a massive, massive market. And within the Department of Defense, there's all the different military branches as well. Um, but again, and of course, the federal government is also probably the biggest venture investor as well in terms of investing in crazy high tech ideas, which we did quite a bit of at Oceanet. Again, the dual use opportunity, right? Going from really, when you think dual use, it's really about how do you take a civilian product that's been maybe already successful, but how do you make a version of it for defense or federal government agency? Okay. And then again, many things that we have today, drones, GPS, advanced materials, AI, all that stuff actually a lot of it came from research on the defense side. Okay. Now there are other agencies in the federal government, not just the Department of Defense, but there's USDA and Department of Energy, NASA, and many others. Okay. And then we do work with a various different DoD innovation arms as well. So part of it is we'll pull those in as we need to. But in general, the program itself is a 10-month kind of journey. And, like the JSTAR X program we run for the Japanese government is not that long. It is very, very intense. So literally those companies will come to Hawaii and we'll be with them for about 3 weeks intensely. Okay. But the assumption we've made with this program is you are already running a business. So Seiichi, your business, I already know you're working 70, 80 hours a week on your regular business. Okay. And so and similarly, many of you are doing maybe the same thing in your regular business. So for you to consider looking at a market entry into the federal government, we kind of considered, well, we want to meet with you maybe once a week after work, and we'll do it online for 1 hour. But but to but we'll do it over a 10-month period versus, okay, we're going to just have you with us for a month or 2 or 3 weeks, and I could easily bankrupt a company if their CEO or something is like just not doing their regular business for a month or more. So that's why we stretched it out over a 10-month period. So then that way, you can still do your regular business, do all the things you got to do, but at the same time, give you the opportunity to come into the federal government market. Again, really looking at civilian products, services, technologies that we can kind of roll into the federal government and defense sector. We have an extensive mentor network, and that's probably one of the most valuable things I think we'll bring to the table is the various experts on the defense side, federal government side. It's a totally different world than the civilian market. So we'll bring those experts, and many of them are actual potential customers and end users as well. And we will get you in front of them multiple times. So one of the things that we will work with you is how do you transform how you position and message what you do as an organization and company so that it is palatable to a federal government customer, a government customer, a defense customer. And so you will be getting in front of folks frequently because we want you to kind of present to them, and then those mentors and customers and users will give you feedback on how to kind of adapt what you're communicating to them. Okay. And again, ultimately, it's really to find you potential customers and partners as well. You may many times how you're going to enter the market is by actually working with an existing company that's already doing work with the federal government, but you're bringing something kind of special to the table that's unique, that maybe allows that other company to go after new opportunities or differentiate themselves. And so together you'll go in and maybe win opportunities. Okay. These are some of the grading criteria that we have. So one of it is, and I want to say I'm kind of missing something too. 10. Actually, there's another There's actually another set of criteria I've actually forgot to add, but basically, if you want you to be headquartered in Hawaii, again, this is state of Hawaii funding that we're using to do this program. Again, the more established you are, of course, the better, because it's but again, these are our guides. They're not hard and fast rules. If your company has a lot of potential, you have an ability to sustain yourself, and that we won't bankrupt you in the process of sucking your time, and you're able to morph and adjust as needed in terms of your product and services. That's why I say, in a way, software is interesting because it can modify very much more quickly than if it was a piece of hardware sometimes. I've done lots of work around hardware, and that's really hard to pivot sometimes, um, in a short period of time. But again, these are just some guidelines. So the more years of you've been in business, the more revenue you have, the better, because that demonstrates, some product market fit. But it also is about you have revenues to sustain yourself, because to get into the federal government market, you're talking not months but years to eventually get into the market. It can be a good market, but it will take time, and it's just the nature of it. It just takes a lot of time. Of course, we're going to look at your dual use potential. Is your civilian technology or product, is there opportunity to bring it into a government defense market? But that's part of what we're going to help you with, right? So you may not fully see your potential, but that's why I would have you still apply. If you say, I'm not clear about where the defense thing is, that's where we will come in. When we review your applications, we will take a look at that. The other, of course, is your executive level commitment. So we really are looking for the leadership of the organization to be a part of the program. You can include other members of your team to be a part of the program, but it's very important that the senior leadership, the founder, CEO level person, be involved, because you will see during the process of learning about the federal government market, there are some strategic potential decisions you will have to make. And it's hard if a mid-level person or somebody who doesn't have decision-making authority, who's part of the program, but then now has to go back to the boss and explain this. It's very hard to explain. And we've done this enough times where we see that's where it all falls apart. Is the senior person does not understand what has been going on in terms of the program. The last component, which is also upwards of 10 points, so you can see where the scores go. The other 10% is just market. I'm going to say it's kind of like market potential. But you'll see it in the application. You'll see that the questions we ask basically help us to score you. Okay, so I do have in the application something that when it starts coming about the dual use potential and all of that, it kind of says the questions are optional, but really you don't want to leave those blank. Okay, um, help us help you be a part of the program. Okay. Program timeline, we're a bit behind the curves. There's actually two other incubation programs that are already operational here in Hawaii. One is Blue Startup, so maybe you know, and the other one is Mana Up. They've already started their cohorts. We haven't selected our cohort yet. So, but our program is smaller. It's much smaller. We're only going to choose 5 companies. Okay. Uh, and they can be from the neighbor islands as well. And that's one of our hope. The reason why we're doing this program online, mostly online, is so that neighbor island entrepreneurs and companies can join the program. But we're going to make the decision as soon as we can. So we've already received applications already. We're going to start scoring them probably by the end of this month. So the sooner you get your applications in, the better. The overall deadline is October 1st. But if we find 5 great companies to be a part of the program, we're gonna launch. Okay. We're gonna spend a lot of time with you initially to understand your business and where you want to and where your business is going. So a lot of it is actually us learning about your business and basically helping to then help you think about the strategy going forward. Um, it will cover everything, including like assigning you, like getting you some mentors to be a part of it. We're gonna take a look at your technology ready, what they call TRLs. We're gonna again, and we're gonna kind of, depending on the cohort itself, we tend to customize it based on who you guys are, what you do, and so on. Um, and it's in general, I want to say in general, what we're going to be doing is getting you in front, helping you redo your materials, how you present, and basically getting in front of actual potential customers and users, folks that can give you feedback about what you're doing, because we have our assumptions as well, which may be incorrect. So as quickly as possible, we want to get you in front of folks. But a big part of that getting you ready is the preparation. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time getting you ready. And you already probably have the materials you need. We just gotta reformat and remessage, and then we're going to start getting you in front of these folks, and then ultimately, hopefully, finding some traction with different folks, either customers or partners, to pull you into opportunities. This is more detailed, and again, this may differ slightly from the website, but again, this is more details, and I can share the presentations with you guys as well. We'll also look at intellectual property considerations. Again, we'll run some market analysis reports on you as well. We'll do some vetting of your companies, how you go about doing things. We'll also look at, we'll talk about contracting, different contracting vehicles. We are not going to take you through like the SBIR process, though we have experience in that. We're gonna, if you're interested in doing more research and your products need more research, then we will point you back to HTDC, who runs the CIBR Hawaii CIBR program, and they can take you through the process of applying for research and development funding. We're more on the, I want to say, small r, small d, more on the more on the commercialization piece. Really trying to get you different kinds of funding. Again, we'll also talk about compliance stuff, export controls, just managing your business for a federal government customer. And again, a lot of it is around the customer validation, product market fit stuff. So the program itself, we don't take any equity because we don't put any money in you. We're not an investor program, an investment program. So, but we will provide you access to potential DoD customers and mentors. There's also, of course, the Japanese side, because we work for the Japanese government in terms of the JSTAR X incubation program. So there is, I think, potential opportunity for you to collaborate with some of the best technology companies out of Japan. And I have to tell you, I'm very surprised. I shouldn't be, but very, very amazing technology companies out of Japan that we're working with. So those could be potential collaborations, partnerships. If you're interested in entering the Japanese market, going the other way. Okay, so PICHTR has 40 years of working with the Japanese government, so that's also a potential form of a win. So there's many ways we'll look at in terms of how you may win. One could be that we introduce you to one of our investors or people outside that actually makes investments if you need it. You find potential customers. It could be civilian customers as well. We're very connected here in Hawaii. So if we find you a state of Hawaii government customer or a city and county customer or a commercial customer here in Hawaii, we will consider that as a win as well as markets in Japan, as well as South Korea too. So I've been working in South Korea for over 10 years. So we have that opportunity to also look at, depending on your product, is there opportunities outside of Hawaii? Okay. And of course, PICHTR's been around for about 40 years. Again, so this is us, and as well as HTDC. So again, HCDC has their cyber program. They also have their tech conference in October, and of course, they're very involved and very connected, of course, to the innovation economy ecosystem in Hawaii. Of course, PICHTR has been around, as I mentioned, and again, I said it before. We launched the first kind of dual-use incubation program 20 years ago. We run the current JSTAR X dual-use incubation program. We work with OTAs, what are called other transaction authorities. Basically, these are contracting opportunity vehicles that you can all participate in. And then we host an annual conference in February, and we would have you join us at that conference. So that in many ways, it's kind of a dual use technology conference. So again, these both of our organizations will provide you opportunities to participate in those conferences. Again, I kind of mentioned this already. I won't go through it, but yeah. And this is kind of a summary of what I just said, I guess. Uh, and then if you need support on other types of funding opportunities and so on, that's what will kick in. The application process, right, is pretty simple. All you got to do is go to hawaiiwave.org and go through the application process. You'll sign up, get a profile. You'll sign up. You can, it's a pretty extensive process. It shouldn't take that long, but you can save your application and come back to it. And then when you initially submit when you submit your application on the back end, we have kind of an AI judge that'll do a first level of actual judging, looking at your application. But then I have assigned judges, human judges, that will then look at your application and basically score it. And then what happens is we come up with a comprehensive compiled kind of score for each company, and then from there we will look and we'll probably set up a quick interview for, say, the top companies to talk to them, and then at that point we will then make the selection of the 5 companies, and then from there we'll kind of kick off. Okay. We do have a application deadline, but again, as I mentioned, if we find 5 companies, that we really like, we're going to go for it. We will, as we score your applications, we will start to set up those interviews to kind of get to you. And if once we fill those 5 slots, we're going to move forward. The program, again, duration is 10 months. The idea is about 1 hour once a week. We will get together online. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you to still do all the things you got to do for your business, but then start looking at this opportunity around dual use. I want to say there's going to be work you will need to do beyond the 1 hour. So you need to budget probably 4 to 5 hours a week. Nothing hard. I don't think it's anything really hard. Anything you couldn't do. A lot of it is actually preparing, because it's like we want you to present, right? It's like, so you're gonna want to like put on your A game and get ready to present the next time we get in front of some customers. Again, the cohort size is 5, so it's very small. It's very personalized. It'll be somewhat customized for your use, your program. Let me see what else here. And by the way, so this is the 2 incubation programs we're probably best known for. One is we launched the Hawaii Dual Use Industry Program more than 20 years ago. We had actual monies to actually put into companies. We still did not take equity, but these were grants that went out to Hawaii companies. And we also were able to set up with the state of Hawaii a commercialization fund of about $5 million. So we pushed out quite a bit of money into the Hawaii economy and Hawaii companies that have benefited over the years. In fact, the company I was with previously, it actually helped to launch the material science business at Oceanet, 20 years ago, that has now become, really the driving force behind a lot of the innovation at the company. And then we also created a renewable energy incubation program that later has become known as Elemental Impact. And it got spun out of PICHTR in 2009 and has put in quite a bit of money into organizations around Hawaii as around the world. and they're actually an investor, so they actually put actual investment monies into companies. And I'll go back to this slide and questions, questions for me.
So earlier you mentioned the criteria for or the requirements and the scoring. Can you remind me what was the total scoring needed? Because there's certain ones that we definitely just don't meet whatsoever.
Yeah. So the total score is about 40. The total score is 40. Um, let me go back to my slide here, to the scoring slide. Oops, there it is. Probably the biggest one is this dual use potential, right? But again, this may be a little bit harder for folks because it's like, I don't know how, like I just, the simple example I just gave to somebody was, we know the Mana, Melly James and the folks at Mana Up. So I've been looking at the Mana Up companies, which are consumer product goods companies, right? But I'm looking at those companies going, and there's a company called Body Mint that's been around a long time, right? So Body Mint is a pill you take that it's a pill you take that actually reduces body odor. Okay. But that's actually a good thing because when these guys are like at forward operating bases in the desert, like in Afghanistan and other places, they don't bathe for like 2 to 3, 4 weeks at a time, right? So they really smell. But the other part too is if you really smell and you're out on patrol, you're actually giving off, signals to people that, there's people around.
Yeah.
So that product, for example, I would like to get that company in front of Lieutenant Colonel John Williams, who was with the Army DevCom group here that does. They basically, DevCom is like the Army's R&D guys. They're like the Ford Scouts looking for the next innovation for the Army. But he later on went to Special Operation Forces. So like he's the perfect guy to get anything like has to do with the warfighter, and it's like, hey, does this stuff make sense, right? Is smelling bad and being, and again, just staying, if this thing actually helps you to stay clean at some level, that's actually important because if you're really dirty and you get injured, that dirt, your dirtiness, your clothes that are dirty actually then enters your wounds and actually gets you infected. You get sick
Yeah.
because you're dirty, right?
So with regards to ourselves, we haven't been in operation for more than 5 years, and we don't have revenue, but our product is the result of close to a decade of O&R research.
Okay, good. That's
So
good.
we're at a point where most definitely we understand that the military is a end use client, but we're going forward with a commercialization with non-military applications currently.
Great. Okay.
And so I was just curious on, if just because we don't meet those two requirements, wave energy, I don't think there's a single wave energy company that exists that has revenue.
Yeah, and there's a reason why, right? Because even at Oceanet, we did a bunch of stuff like that, and so I actually have probably the perfect mentor I can think of. I can think of a former colleague of mine at Oceanet that's retiring, so he may be a great mentor. So definitely apply. Don't, yeah. Again, these are guidelines. These are guidelines. Because I do know like a bunch of the guys who just already applied to the program, I'm seriously still looking at them because they have great potential, right? It's more about that. The reason why we put those kinds of criteria is because we just want to make sure we don't put a company in harm's way because all of a sudden they're spending so much time in our program that they jeopardize their current business. So as long as you balance that, we're totally okay, right? Because it sounds like what you're doing is, again, super high potential, and that's what we're looking for, is companies that have that potential, and at the same time, our program is not going to have a detrimental impact on your current business.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we care about. That's why the criteria is the way it is. And in fact, the need is actually more about what you need, right? Like Seiichi needs, like, in my opinion, like, there's no programs to help somebody like Seiichi in Hawaii, because most of the incubation programs, like including ours, always looks for companies that are way more mature, right? But in reality, where the companies need the most help are the ones that are not necessarily, oh, we're already doing like $3 or $4 million in revenue. Those, right? But that's normally what you look for, is the companies that already at some level have found success. But in a way, I'm trying to be open in our program to not necessarily only look at those companies, but companies that could really use our help, but have the potential to become the 3, 4, $50 million a year companies. So please apply. Is, I guess, bottom line is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And we'll seriously look at you guys.
I have to hop off, but I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, Nicholas. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Other questions? Other questions? No other questions? Got it. You told him hopefully I'll go back to the, sorry, let me go back to
I have a
the,
question, Ian.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, from the other dual use incubators you're running,
Yep.
if a company starts as a civilian technology and then they go through one of your programs, do you see them typically pivot to military technology, or do you see them like continue to provide a civilian technology?
They're doing both. Yeah. I actually what, but again, I think, so again, the, what I see is most, again, it's um, like we have some, one scenario is a company that's been around for 20 years. Okay. They, and if you're around for 20 years, you're doing something right to be able to survive for 20 years. But what is happening for that company, right? So they have the wherewithal, they have money in the bank, they've been successful. But what's happening for that company is their industry is changing. And the founder of the company is going, you know what, there's, this market is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years, and our business is going to go away. So we need to pivot into another market. And so in that case, they're really moving, they're really looking at how do they morph their product or service into a federal government or defense kind of application. And they're leaving back, they may be leaving the civilian market behind, because that market is going away over the next 5 or 10 years. Now, if a company is younger, right, they may be like 2 or 3 years old, and the civilian market is still growing, right? It's still really growing. And so they'll stay in that market because they've already entered that market. They're riding the wave there. It's doing good. There's growth, and they see the potential over the next 10 years. But at the same time, they're like, can we take 10% of our effort and put it into this long-term market that'll take a long period of time, right? So they're kind of doing this dual track. And that's actually hard, really hard to do. But that's why, in a way, that's why we kind of designed this program to try and mitigate, because we lived through this, when 20 years ago, when we were running this same program, those companies were focused on defense from the very get-go. But what we wanted to do was get them working on the civilian market. But because we didn't have a program like this, like, they just could never like apportion like 10% of their time to enter like a new market. So in a way, when we designed this one, right, it's kind of like, okay, how do we design it so that you can spend 90% on your growing business, your existing business, and then kind of sliver off 10% to kind of explore the defense kind of dual use market, right? I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it depends on the current life cycle of the organization, right? um, so most of the JSTAR X companies we're dealing with are in that latter. They're, basically they're in a growth market. They're in a growth civilian market, but they want to actually target a the biggest market ever, which is the U.S. federal government, U.S. Department of Defense market. That's the biggest monster out there, probably. But it's a totally different world, and it. So we want to kind of help build your Sherpas to help you kind of climb that pretty steep mountain. Other questions, comments, concerns? Maybe I think I have one last thing I would say, but anybody else? Okay, maybe the only last thing I would say is kind of sometimes the elephant in the room is, when I'm saying defense, I think people, it has it can have a really negative connotation, but I guess I've been in the defense world for almost, 20 plus years of my of my career. And I want to say that like the things that the opportunity there is around how do you help save lives versus we're not going to support you in creating things that are going to take lives, but definitely we're very interested in helping you support things that help to preserve life, help people survive very dangerous situations, how to, like again, how to produce energy, how to get clean water. The defense stuff tends to be interesting because you're dealing in sometimes very extreme conditions, and so that is I think a fertile ground for developing very innovative solutions. But so much of I think what is needed on the defense side is things that again just helping soldiers survive, right? A lot of young men and women need ways to like get through some pretty horrendous times, and also in recovery too. So that's where I was looking at the CPG stuff. Are there products and services there that could help soldiers who are suffering from PTSD? The military has some of the highest suicide rates, highest, injury rates. You're talking about lots of different types of injuries that they're going to live with for the rest of their lives. And so I think there's lots of need for entrepreneurs to help solve a lot of these problems. So when I say defense, think of it more like how do we help our men and women in the military, recover and actually have good quality of life during their service as well as after their service period. So, and with that, if there's nothing else, I just want to thank everybody for joining us again. I'll stop sharing. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Please go to hawaiiwave.org and apply. I will also be on the radio on Friday at 6:30, Bite Marks Cafe on Hawaii Public Radio. Bert Lum and I will be talking about the program, but you've heard it in more detail than you would hear it on the radio. But so please go to hawaiiwave.org and apply. And yeah, we look forward to seeing your applications and talking with you. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. My email is ian.kitajima, and I'll put it in the in the chat. It's ian.kitajima at PICHTR, PICHTR.org. Okay. With that, thanks everybody. Have
Thanks,
a
Ian.
great rest of the week. Take care. Look forward to talking.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you. Mahalo. Thank you. I will stop the recording.